All right, so you guys accept that on your end, and we are good to go. So today is June the 23rd, 2021. A lot is happening on this planet, in this universe. We are definitely not alone. We are part of something grander. And the more that we ascend in our awareness of the truth of who we are, the more that we become more clear about our connection to all that is, our connection to the infinite source of infinite possibilities. Our mind gets so conditioned into singularity in terms of, which is interesting, it's a paradox. We are conditioned into polarity, into duality, but into becoming a very single-minded, singly focused individual that really thinks very little of itself because it sees itself as a tiny point inside of something that is so, so vast. Let me just mute everybody so we don't have any background noise. So anyways, our focus becomes very singular, and it is always selfish and greedy, and it's all about me. That is what the ego is all about. It is what allows us to navigate on this physical plane, believing that we are somebody. So we have to take on an identity. That identity is a conglomeration of the conditioning that we receive. So our family tells us who we are. Our church tells us what to believe. The government tells us what the laws are that we are supposed to abide in. Society conditions us into what kind of work we should do, what kind of financial status we should achieve. Anyways, little by little by little, the essence of who we are gets forgotten as we become outer focused and take on what the world says we should be, do, and have. Once that shift happens, and let me tell you, it is pretty complete by the time we're in elementary school. It is pretty solid by 5, 6, 7 years old. We are what our environment tells us that we are, without exception. If a child grows up in a more conscious family, a more conscious environment, they do retain more of the truth of who they are, which is what I am doing with my grandchild. I am not here to teach him anything about who he's supposed to be, do, and have. I am here to remind him that that came with him. It is the essence of who he is. My work as his grandmother and his conscious parents are in agreement with this, is to help Ryder grow up knowing the truth of who he is. And we simply help him navigate the 3D world while he accesses his knowingness that he already brought from a higher dimension. I keep getting that he's an incarnation of a 6D being, so he's beyond the 5D world. So he's got a lot to teach us. Um, but right now, we are in the midst of a really, really important battle. And it's an internal battle that is being projected externally. So when we are clear that the battle is inside, and it is what the Course in Miracles wants us to understand, which is why it's called a course in mind training. Once we understand that the battle is inside, it's within our mind, it's within two belief systems that we have access to. The one belief system is what we get trained into by the world, and that's what forms our ego mind, our ego thinking. The other belief system is what is natural inside of us that every little baby knows, that they are connected to something that is beyond this world. So we've got the voice for God beyond this world, and we got the voice of the ego that is all about this world. The battle is between those two voices. When we are unconscious, we know that there is a battle raging on inside, and people go crazy, schizophrenic. There's just all that noise in the head. So it's very, very easy to get distracted about what's really happening. So we think we got all these voices in the head, but there's really only two. And they just take on lots of different personalities. And that's why the part of the course that we're reading last week and will continue today tells us that we've got to get clear about all the different levels of conversations that are going on in our head. Once we understand that that battle is inside, and we make a clear clear distinction between the two voices, we literally move from being asleep, not knowing that those voices are running our life, to becoming self-aware of two voices in our head. That is the beginning of, of this journey of mind training, what the Course in Miracles wants us to get. We've got to become very familiar with those two voices. And this can take, I mean, this can take decades. This can take a very long time for us to be able to really hear them clearly and be able to distinguish between the two, because the ego is very tricky. It morphs, it's insidious, it takes on personalities. It tells us that it is God because it's pretending to be God. It's what blocks God by pretending to be God. So our ego gets very spiritualized. It is not until we are ready to choose the one voice only, the voice for God, that we are really awakening. To be awake is to choose only to be what you are. To be asleep is to not even have a clue of what you are. And self-awareness is a journey in the middle. So I consider these, as I use this chart, those of you who are new here today, this is just a chart that I have created. I've been using it for the past 10, 12 years that I've been teaching. And it's a combination of the map of consciousness that has been given to us by Dr. David Hawkins in the book Power versus Force, and the I forget what it's called, the scale of emotions, I believe that's a term used by Abraham Hicks in their teachings. So I've taken the two and combined them, because what I've recognized is, even though they're very similar, there's a slight little overlap, but there are some characteristics that have just been more prevalent with the clients that I've been teaching. So it just became easier for me to have a simpler list. But the list is divided into three parts. So there is when we're totally, completely unconscious and we are under the complete control of the ego. We believe that the outer world has power over us. The second part here, the bridge, this is what this would be third dimension, living completely unaware of who we really are. The bridge in the middle is like the fourth dimension, where we know that this is what's running our lives, but we are aspiring to the higher dimension truths that are beginning to register with us as we're opening ourselves to receive more guidance, our crown chakra, and we're receiving truths. And the third stage is the awakening stage, the beginning to understand what fifth dimension beings operate from, where this is the light, this is the darkness, this is the in-between gray area where we're gaining our sea legs or our wings, whatever you want to call it, whatever analogy you want to use, where we literally are on a bridge between the old and the new, between unconscious and being awake and conscious. This is the bridge that can take lifetimes. In this lifetime, if you're here, it's because you are on that bridge. You can't be in this conversation if you are stuck down here. And I use the color people to indicate the journey. Everyone is born, like my grandson Ryder, love and light. That's why I use a little yellow person to symbolize that we are the light. As the Course tells us, I am the light of the world. Then little by little, we become conditioned and moved into the belief that what we are is just a physical body. And so it changes to the green color to begin to show that we're morphing out of the truth of who we are and creating a personality, an identity, not so much a personality, a little bit, but an identity as a human being that has forgotten that we're really a divine being. Then, of course, we enter into the descending beliefs, the denser thought systems of fear, of jealousy, of greed, of selfishness. So we move from that green color to the blue color until we get so low in low in the vibrational frequency, but far from the truth of who we are. It's like a huge amount of veils, of layers and layers and layers, like the onion, which is why to wake up, we got to peel the layers of the onions, which are all of these beliefs that we pick up. And those who go really far down into the depths of the darkness, it's the red color, where according to Dr. David Hawkins, when you get really low, that's where evil happens. And evil is nothing more than the polar opposite of life. So when you're operating at the level of evil, this is total and complete greed. This is what in this world we would know as the 1% of the 1% that attempts to control everybody, has been controlling everybody. And to be totally, fully embodied in the life force that we are, to live fully, live with a capital L. You are living because you came to the planet to bring the light that you are, is a total polar opposite of what somebody who enters into the realm of being evil. And evil is really nothing more than how far away from the truth can I be and continue to have this incarnation. With all of that, to kind of give you a quick little summary about what we're doing today is the continuation of what we talked about last week. And I'll give a quick little recap, which is to understand that the only reason any of us experiences fear, experiences disconnect, experiences the sense of lack is because we have denied the truth of who we are. To be on this bridge and to be able to cross it into the fifth dimension of consciousness, while we have physical bodies, we're not fifth dimensional beings yet. The mind has to be prepared for fifth dimensional thinking, because the thought creates the reality of a physical vessel that is little by little shifting from being carbon-based to being crystalline. You cannot move into that crystalline light body. We're not going to be able to do that if the mind doesn't understand what it is first, because thoughts create reality. So to be able to move into this reality that you are a divine being having this human existence, and to live on this planet in the world but not of it, so that you are embodying the truth of who you are, you must operate in honesty, integrity, truth. To be able to do that, you have got to call out your own bullshit, because BS, belief systems, that's what I meant to say. We have to call out. When our ego is talking to us, you have to identify it, because the only way to live from your light is to not be seduced, dissuaded by your ego, to not believe the stories that activate fear. Only the fearless can live in the fifth dimension, because the fifth dimension is where love creates our reality. You can't create a love-based reality if there's fear. That's what the 3D world has been. A world that has been created by fear. And fear is not a thing. It's not anything. Like darkness is not, there's not a source of darkness. There's not a source of fear. There is only an absence of light. There's only an absence of truth. Fear is what we feel internally when we block ourselves from resting in the peaceful knowledge of the truth. For us to rest in the knowledge of the truth, we have to remember the truth. So as we descend into the density of our egoic thought system, the journey is to little by little ascend by questioning all of our beliefs, until we return to a clear mind that knows truth and doesn't have beliefs that block it. So Course in Miracles is training our mind into the distinction between those two voices, so that on the bridge, we can sort them out. This is what the 4D consciousness is. You know truth, but you're still operating in the illusion. So you're choosing and you're taking a step at a time. We're operating here in what I call that middle part. Right here, we're operating in that 50%. We know it. So we're comfortable right here in the middle of the 4D bridge. Here, we're operating 51, 52, 60%, 70%, 80%, 90% in our ego. Here, we're going to 51% in our truth, 52, 53, 60, 70, 80, 90%, 95% of our thoughts with God, thoughts of truth, thoughts of love. Consciously creating from love, unconsciously creating from fear. We don't even know that we're doing that here. We become aware of it here. Then we choose the one that makes us feel better. And once you're aware that only love makes us feel good, then you begin to choose all your thinking that are based on love, that are based in alignment with God, where we are really clear, not my will, not my ego will, but thy will, God's, be done. And it is not because there's a God out there somewhere, it's because you have remembered that if you live, if you have life force in you, you are God. You and the Father, Mother, God, Source, Spirit, whatever you want to call it, are one. That full awakening to the realization, oh, just that what we are is love and powerful beyond measure, utilizing our power in miscreation because we didn't know how powerful we were because we got told by everybody else, who do you think you are? When we let that power wake up inside of us, we can't help but recognize that this has all been really, truly from this level, fun and games. Fun and games to come to the playground called planet Earth. And it would have been okay if we would have descended a little bit, but we turned this playground into a horror house. And those of us who are awakening, who have awakened, who are becoming self-aware and can see the horror that we have created, are just tired of this insanity, don't want to play this game anymore. And we have decided to now pull our energy from this. And the way we pull our energy from this shit show is to say, I'm not afraid of you anymore. You have no power over me. I know you and I are all brothers and sisters. We're holy, holy, powerful beings. We came here to play the game. You're choosing to go dark. I've been there, done that, and not interested in that anymore. This is where the honesty comes in. You have to honestly accept that we co-created this before you can release it, because to take your power from what you don't like means you cannot judge it. If you judge it, it has your power because now your mind is focused on attacking that. But when you pull your power from it, you say, I don't like that anymore. It's boring. It's absolutely boring. I'm not going to play with that. That is a maturity that comes with an understanding. All of us have the same power, which means we don't see anybody else as an authority over us. Therefore, they cannot make us be afraid. We recognize the authority as God within, and everybody has it. And if they want to play there, it's okay. If they want to play there, it's okay. If they want to play there, it's okay. If you want to play there, it's okay. Judgment ceases, acceptance reigns supreme, because honesty is what you live from. Everybody is a powerful being creating whatever experience they want. And what we are headed to is a time of, there's just a bifurcation taking place. A shift is happening. We are going to see a division between these two sides. And it's not because it's a bad thing and God's punishing anybody. It's because those who are operating in the denser realms, they want to play the game of karma. So they are setting up their karmic lessons for their next incarnation. Those who don't want to play the game of karma and are cleaning up their belief systems are setting themselves up to play the game of incarnation from a higher frequency, which is what we're calling a new earth. A new earth is where we are going to co-create from love only. There is a deliberate choice. How can we do something for the greater good of all? The folks who are going to reincarnate in the karmic game are still playing the game of what's in the service to self alone. Service to self means that this is still God wanting to experience, how low can I go before I choose to return home. This is as low as I wanted to go, and my journey began. For some people, they've got to go to evil because that's what they want to do. So let me stop there. I want to hear from some of you from our last conversation last week. What awarenesses have you had from our last conversations? And how is your relationship with A Course in Miracles going? Give me a little bit of feedback there, and then we will jump into what we are going to focus on this week. And again, thank you for those of you who are joining us for the first time. And thank you so much for those of you who are coming back. All right, unmute yourself, please. I want to hear from you. Kathy, you must be enjoying this. You keep coming back.
I am. I am. As I said when I first joined, my intention was to really challenge my belief system. And, I've been doing the workbook every morning. And, I had a situation recently where one of the practices, the morning practices, was to really recognize by looking at the other what I need to shift up, what I need to shift in my thinking about how they're showing up. And it was really powerful because what I recognized is there really wasn't anything that I needed to shift about how they were showing up. It was just me and how I was looking at it. And I know that seems simple, but this was yesterday and it was just like a breakthrough. Wow, they're not doing anything wrong. I don't need to change anything in how they're showing up. It's just my shifting and how I'm seeing it. And it was, even though I've known this concept, it was just by using the Course in Miracles, somehow it was like a breakthrough. And it was just really powerful for me yesterday as I was doing the practice. So, it has been going well. And I'm very grateful to be here on Wednesdays with you as we dig deeper. And sometimes I feel like I'm getting it or I'm not getting it, but then it'll show up. It'll just show up in my life. Like I feel like I'm calling this in. So there's a little fear around that. Like, so I'm calling in the opportunity to challenge these beliefs. So what's going to show up? But so far it's been a beautiful journey, and I'm just grateful and just taking it all in.
I
Thank you.
love that. Absolutely. I love that. Well, we are going to get the helpers that are going to help us ascend as we get the helpers that show up in our lives to help us descend. So we get those who entice us into the lower realms, and we get those who are helping us to clear up what needs to be cleared up to go into the higher realms of consciousness. Um, so I don't know if you've heard me say this, but there are three basic stages that I have come to understand that we go through to kind of keep things simple. When we are beginning this journey, we go through the information phase where we're taking in information, we're reading, we're going to workshops. It's all about feeding the mind all kinds of wonderful information. Yes, during those processes, there is activation of heart space. There is an activation of the crown chakra. We get guidance and all of that happens, but it's primarily an information stage. That happens, I'm going to say, when we are totally an ego. So we're receiving wonderful information. Then we move into the integration stage where information has to be integrated. That means that you are literally shifting one belief for another belief. The information of truth gets integrated and you release misinformation. You release old information. You release dense information. So information integration, then is transformation. Transformation is when you have transcended form, the physical form of the outer world that informs us. When we are no longer looking at the outer world to inform you, you're in integration with that example that you gave. And we bounce around all of these in different situations. But that person gave you an opportunity for you to integrate what you already knew. I mean, you've heard this. It's never them, it's me. But when we have that one reaction that we go, wait a second, that reaction came from me. It has nothing to do with them. It's me. When you choose to love yourself enough to not react, but instead respond, you have integrated into your beingness the truth of who you are. You now are clear. The information moved from the head, it's integrated in the heart. The transformation will be next time you see that person and you respond from the get-go, the transformation is complete with that particular lesson. So we are in different places in different situations, but think about it that way. Am I still in information? Am I still talking it? Have I integrated it and I can now see it and clarify within myself, then do what the Course says. Just forgive yourself for having forgotten that you could have um, responded, but you reacted instead. And it's an internal thing, nobody to blame. It's all in me. Then the transformation happens once you have forgiven yourself enough, because you go, well, if I already know it's me, let me just then be that presence of compassion and kindness. Now you have transformed that aspect of you. You've transcended what the world of form says you should do. You should react and you should judge and you should blame, into being above that. You have risen in consciousness. You have moved into looking at the world from a more ascended perspective, which is we're all expressions of the same one source. Thank you, brother, sister, for giving me an opportunity. You are equal to me in your magnificence and your holiness. Thank you for helping me remember the truth of who I am. Now, transformation, you're beyond form. You have transcended it because you see their soul as a helper helping you get a lesson that helps you shift and lift into the higher dimensions of joy. So you enjoy those experiences because they're helping you rise. All right, let's take one more person and then we'll get into the Course. All right, unmute yourself.
Hey, this is Jody.
Hey, Jody, then we'll
Hello?
go to Lisa. We'll go to Lisa after you. Go ahead, Jody.
Oh, that's okay if somebody else wants to
No,
go.
go ahead. Go ahead. You have the floor, girl.
Okay. Hi, sorry about that noise in the background. Hopefully that goes away.
No worries.
Okay, so I was just downstairs working with my partner in my business, who is a new student of Course of Miracles. Well, you know, Laina. But so I was listening. I'm like, oh, I got to run. I'm listening to the Course of Miracles, and I watched his ego say, oh, well, that's not right. It was something you were actually saying, which is funny. And I know you don't take that personally because you know who you are. And I want to share that I was excited because you just shared about information, ego information, and you talked about at the higher level integration. And what I realized is I am so excited because I was in integration, because I said, that's okay. You don't have to agree with it or think that is right. Um, and then I said, okay, I gotta run, I'm going to listen to the rest of my call. And it was a really amazing feeling, because, well, you know, kind of where I was 2 months ago. And so I'm grateful that, I'm just grateful. So I just wanted to share that it's a huge win for me, because in, you know, it I didn't have to make that happen. Like I don't need to like I didn't have to go, okay, that's his ego, but I don't need to respond. It just kind of organically I said, it's okay. You don't have to agree with that.
Oh,
So
that's beautiful. Love that. Love that, Jody. You know, integration is when we begin to experience liberation. You cannot experience liberation without integration, because we are in bondage when we are operating from the ego story, and we're in bondage because we're always reacting. We're always defending ourselves. We're always protecting ourselves. But that integration is the beginning of liberation. That's why only the truth can set you free. So you have to integrate enough of the truth so that you're not reacting. And that's where peace comes in. That's where you're free to go, oh, okay, you can believe whatever you want. And that liberation is of your mind, is liberated from the reactive aspects of the ego that always attempts to blame another person so that it distracts us from knowing that we're the ones who are causing our own suffering. So good for you. Love it, love it, love it. Thanks, Kathy, for writing those steps down there. All right, let's go to Lisa.
Hi, Laina. I just want to say that, you know, I sit here and listen, and I was so divinely led to you and the Course in Miracles, because had I not started reading the Course in Miracles and joining this group, I had such a shift when my mother passed, because I changed my thinking and my mindset, that it was just pure love. And right now, you know, even though I experience a loss, I am at peace. And I'm just grateful because um, I was divinely led to take on. I'm following my inner guidance, my inner God, to be able to, one, care for my mother the way that I did, love her to heaven, and have peace about it. So I just wanted to thank you, and I'm going to cry. So thanks.
Well, it's just an honor to have you bring your curiosity and your presence to these gatherings. So thank you for honoring us with that. And there to me, there's nothing more sacred for me than being in the presence of somebody who shifts from fear to love, who shifts from thinking that this world, this physical world, is what is real, into realizing that this physical world is just a choice that we made because we're powerful creators who chose to have a human experience. So you are then deliberately choosing to enjoy it to the point that you can love your mother into her crossing over, because that soul is a part of you. It's what you are, and that it is an honor. Thank you so much, Lisa. That brings so much light to this planet. So if somebody will write in the comments where we are. So we are in chapter 1 in the text. So remember, the course is a big fat book, and it's got 3 main books, and we are in the book in the very beginning, and we are in chapter 1, which is the meaning of miracles. And you can't move through the Course in Miracles unless you fully understand the meaning of these miracles. And we are in section 6, the illusion of needs. And inside of the illusion of needs, what we're understanding is that what we are needs nothing. We are bringers of imagination to the planet to create whatever it is that we desire to create. But there is an illusion of needs that has been taught to us, and it's been taught to us by those, and this is a challenging concept, but we have to accept that we have been conditioned into believing that we have needs so that we can be more easily manipulated into becoming worker bees. So let that sink in for a little bit. Those who understand the power of the mind but have not opened their heart know that they are programming humanity into submission, because all of us innately have a desire to be in co-creation. We have a desire, because we are creative beings, to come to this planet and create. Those who can condition us into believing that we need things know that they can harness that creative power, that desire to create, and put us to work in the treadmill that humanity goes into, working the factories, working the even the self-employed business, working the corporation, working to produce, because we have been taught that we need education, and we need money, and we need a house, and we need a partner, and we need this, and we need that, and we need status before we get to be, do, and have whatever it is that we're supposed to be, do, and have to then become somebody. So that is ingrained into us from the time that we're little. And and it starts at a very young age. I know I did with my kids at a very young age. You need me to be okay. Then it was, you need my money, so you need my allowance, and you need to do this so you can get that. And the training begins at a very, very young age, that we basically are not enough as we are. There's something that is missing, and it needs to be acquired. It's not just something that we experience from within, but it has to come to us. So we get trained into needing things to make us feel good, to make us feel happy, to make us feel peaceful. And this process, this illusion of needs, is first chapter. This is a basic thing that we have to understand to really make sense of the Course in Miracles, because the Course in Miracles wants us to get that you and I are God being. That's it. God being you, God being me. in total and complete diversity because God is infinite. It's pure infinite potential. So if you are God being and God is the creator of everything, what need can you possibly have? Well, when your mind is trained into needing, you block yourself from giving. So we've got to get the mental part corrected. We've got to have the information that says, oh, I'm enough. I'm more than enough. I'm God. And as you all know, it takes a long time to accept that because we've been given the information that God is outside. So how can I be God and be the creator if God's outside on a cloud somewhere? So lots of different beliefs that contradict each other have to be reconciled through the integration process. So if God's here, not there, all right, then, what need do I have? So little by little, we reconcile that. So I'm going to read, today we're going to start in paragraph 3, but I'm going to read from paragraph 2, just a little bit of what we looked at last week so that we can kind of tie it together here. So a sense of separation from God is the only lack you really need correct. That's sentence number 1 in paragraph 2. A sense of separation, not a separation from God. We can't be separate from God. We can't be separate from what we are, but it's a sense. Our mind has been conditioned to believe that we're not what we are. That's it. And I can see it with my grandson. If I told Ryder, you are God from the very beginning, you are the creative source of all that is, and so is everybody else, because that's what conscious parents do. Treat everybody as equals because you recognize you're God, I'm God, we're all God. Nobody's better than anybody else. So nobody needs to bow down to anybody. There's no hierarchy. So he would grow up with a knowingness of his equality with God and with everybody else. This sense of separation from God is what the church has taught us, put God out there on a pedestal somewhere, like Santa Claus, deciding if we're naughty or nice. We have to heal our God, our beliefs about God, because until we're comfortable with God is inside, we cannot heal that sense of separation. And it is that sense of our power, what is most powerful outside of us, that has us disconnect from accessing the power that is literally inside of us. So this illusion of needs, that what is really valuable is outside of me, needs to shift into God is inside of me, but that requires that we heal our issues with God. And of course, that can take some time also. Then in the same paragraph number 2, it says that this sense of separation would never have arisen if we had not distorted our perception of truth and had thus perceived yourself as lacking. This is where the power comes in. We distorted our sense of perception of truth. Now, you could say, well, how can Ryder distort his perception of truth if the parents tell him God is outside of him? Wouldn't that be the parents' fault? Yes and no. As we move through the awakening, we have to look at everything on 2 levels. On the level of the 3D world, yes, parents would teach that to the child. And yes, the parents taught that to them, and so on until we get to the very end when nobody taught that, where it got made up. However, the second level is that child chose to incarnate to be with those parents, knowing the level of consciousness that those parents had, knowing that they would be trained out of remembering the truth of who they are. So each generation that is born at a higher frequency. If they're choosing to ascend, they're born at a higher frequency, so they can kind of not believe what the parents are telling them. But the responsibility that we chose to believe we're separate from God is where the power to unite with God comes from. If your parents are responsible for separating you from God, then it would be your parents who would be responsible to reuniting you with God. That's not possible. We can't get everybody else that contributed to teaching us things that are not true to give us the truth back. That's just not going to work. What works, and it's the only thing that works, is that you say, okay, I chose to come in here. I chose to have you parents teach me things that are not true. I've chosen for many, many lifetimes. I've been reincarnating and I keep coming down. I come bringer of love and light, and then I descend into whatever frequency my parents are at. but I'm tired of choosing to forget the truth, so I'm going to start remembering it. That is key. Let me read this one more time. Sentence number 2. This sense of separation would never have arisen if you had not distorted your perception of truth. We have to restore our perception of truth. Then it goes on to say, the idea of order of needs arose because having made this fundamental error, you had already fragmented yourself into different levels of needs. So not only do we have to accept that I have no needs, but then we have to correct all the different levels of needs that we created, which I talked more about in the other previous class. And those different fragmented levels of needs have to do with all the different personas that we take on. The need as a mother, the need as a teacher, the need as a lover, the need as the employee. We fragment ourselves into so many different identities that we've got to recognize that all of them are operating in the 3D world, attempting to have its needs met, whether it's the needs as the employee, the needs as the parent, the needs as the lover. All of those different needs keep us believing that we need all these different things to help us feel okay, which is a distraction from a very singular focus, which is that within me, there is only one need. And it is the need to remember the truth of who I am, where no more needs will be present. Now, a common question for people who are newer on this journey is like, what? I have needs. I have the need to make money and pay the bills, blah, blah, blah. Well, as long as we're defending that the outside satisfies our needs, we will continue to be dependent on doing things to get what we want. That is the way the ego operates, which means we will be easily enslaved, which is what is right down here. Enslavement happens at the lower levels of consciousness. Let me see where, oh, it's down here. At the lower levels of consciousness, we become enslaved by those who know that we believe in needs. When we come inside and we connect with God, we are still going to need to have the money to pay the bills and the house for the shelter, blah, blah, blah. But it is not coming from a sense of lack. It's coming from a sense of awareness that we're playing the game of on the 3D planet where these things are part of it. But you begin to realize that your mind creates your reality. And from that place, well, I'm creating the reality that I want money. I'm creating the reality that I want a partner. I'm creating the reality, not because it's going to complete me, but because I've got so much of me to give. So now instead of I need a job to make me money, what do I have to give that there'll be an equal exchange of financial abundance for the talents that I have to offer? Be I a musician or a teacher or a politician, I'm giving to get, to receive. It's a reciprocal process that happens in wholeness. Not what am I going to get, but what is it that I'm going to give that generates the receiving. So anyways, let's go into, let me read the next sentence, number 4. So as you integrate, you become one, and your needs become one accordingly. Unified needs lead to unified action because this produces lack of conflict. So once you know that you're playing the game, you then move into the action that allows you to play the game, not to get, but what are you here to give? This is where you're in the world, but you're not of it. It's all a stage. It's the whole world is a stage. It becomes, what role am I playing? So you realize that nothing out there has power over you. Rather, you're empowered to see everything as a prop in your play, because all the world becomes a stage. So let's go to paragraph number 3, and let's look at this new information here. So the idea of order of needs, which follows from the original error that one can be separated from God. Remember, we read that earlier. That's where all of our problems come from, believing that we're separate from God. It requires correction at its own level before the error of perceiving levels at all can be corrected. You cannot escape this fundamental step. We make a decision to separate from God and enter into an incarnation where we know we're going to take the amnesia pill and forget who we are. We decide to come in and do this. And we end up landing at whatever frequency we are going to descend to, whatever age we happen to get there. When we begin the journey home, begin to move through the layers of beliefs, the layers of misinformation, we cannot ascend back to the truth. We can dabble in these layers and go up and down. God knows I did that for a while. We all do at the beginning when we just have information in our mind. Oh, I want to be rich. Oh, I can, create my lover. My mind creates my own reality. We operate inside of the density of all the different levels of forgetfulness, all of the different levels of needs, until we decide that we are one with God, that we are the creator of our own reality. Changes are not really going to be, they're not going to be sustainable, which is why lots of spiritual people, me included, enter into this whole law of attraction. And then you mature enough to realize, well, I've been doing my affirmations. I've been creating my vision boards. I've been at it for 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years and nothing changes. Well, when that maturity kicks in, why aren't things changing out there? Or they come and you lose them, you get them and they're gone. When you have that disappointment that you're not the creator of your own reality, because it's the ego who becomes the creator of your own reality, and you realize, oh, I need to align with God. I need to accept God within me. What is it that God believes is true about me? Not my will, ego's will, but God's will be done. In that comes a shift where you're no longer seeking to get from the world. You're seeking to align with God, to find out what are you here to give to the world. Because when we come into this planet, we know we're bringing a gift, our purpose, our talent, something. But many of us, from the time we were little, we're conditioned out of believing that talent is what we're here to give. Oh, you don't be a musician. They're artists. They don't make enough money. No, you're not going to be a chef. You're going to go into the family accounting business. So we have our mind filled with information about what we're supposed to be, do, and have. And when we start this journey, we want to acquire at the level of consciousness that we're at. But it is not until we cross over on this bridge deep enough to realize that there is a knowingness inside of us of what makes our heart sing, what is most joyful, what is our greatest excitement. And until that is given permission to be birthed and be expressed, you're not going to feel the full alignment with who you are and God within you expressing itself in a way that is going to be the most fulfilling. And there is a major, I know for me, it was a very challenging time. I thought when I started my journey, and I'm a realtor and I'm making a lot of money and blah, 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 selling a lot of houses, that I was going to attract my law of attraction. Oh, I was going to make all this money in real estate, not realizing that my calling was to be a teacher of truth. I never grew up wanting to be a spiritual person. I never grew up wanting to be a teacher. I never grew up wanting to do any of those things. It was all about, I'm going to make a lot of money. So until I humbled myself and began to follow what really was my calling and realized, oh, the amount of money in this career is this much compared to all that I made in real estate. And I had to switch my mind. I had to switch my thought process and begin to really realize that until I gave all that I am fully, the abundance to me wasn't about the money that I received. The abundance was about the joy that I experienced through the sharing of what is in my heart to share. So it took me a good decade to shift from what I was getting into really accepting what I was here to give. Now, I don't think about what I do in terms of money, but money is part of it. And it continues to flow and it continues to show up. And I've borrowed a definition for myself of abundance that I heard from a channel, Bashar. And abundance is having what I need when I need it. Our mind gets conditioned into abundance is about acquiring, accumulating. But all of that is because we don't trust. We don't trust that we're going to get it when we need it. When you trust that you have what you need when you need it, why accumulate? So that shift inside of me happened because I wanted to do what made my heart sing, not what made my, what went cha-ching in my checking account, but rather what made my heart sing and is so fun and joyful. And because I know I'm entitled to miracles, one of the Course in Miracles lessons, because I'm entitled to miracles, I'm expecting my sugar daddy in the, this creative source of all that is to make the way clear for me to be able to do what I love to do. Because if I am aligned with God and God is expressing through me, I'm expecting it to do its part. It's a partnership. I am the physical vessel that allows it to have this physical experience, but it is the power that makes the way fun and easy for me. And then once I aligned with that and I just follow and flow with that movement inside of me, well, then things get really easy. Yes, Lisa.
Sorry, I have a quick question. So
Yes.
people that don't recognize their truth or ever find out what their purpose is and they pass, is that just something they're going to be reincarnated again to continue their lesson, or?
That's a very good question. Everybody who leaves at whatever level of consciousness they leave, they return to experience the opposite side of that. So, we hear all these stories all the time. Somebody who is karmically goes through being murdered because they were the murderer in the past life. And those energies have to be balanced. So we will come in at whatever level of consciousness we leave and must get the lesson that corrects, that gives us the permission, or not the permission, but the opportunity for us to go, oh, wait, no, I don't want to do it that way anymore. So it is that correction in the mind that lifts our vibration, so that each incarnation, before it was very slow. Look at Jesus. 2,000 years ago, the man came to tell us, love one another. What did Gandhi do? What did Martin Luther King Jr. do? Love one another. How long is it going to take us to get that? Well, we will have to continue to incarnate and swing like a pendulum, swinging from one side of the density to the other, from victim to bully, until we unplug from that game. So yes, but don't feel bad for anybody that has to come back and reincarnate, because these are all powerful beings choosing that particular experience. Why? Because we can. In non-physical form, we're all going, yippee, this planet Earth is full of activities. Let's go down there and play all these different characters that we can play, because when you know that you're eternal, there's no fear of getting, shot. Here, like an actor is not afraid of pretending, that they're being shot on stage for the purpose of the experience, for the purpose of the role. So our mind has to get just as clear that we are playing roles like an actor is playing a character. And it's just filling up the resume of all the possibilities of what it can do. So that's a great question. Very simple. So let me go to the next sentence, which is number 2. You cannot behave effectively while you function on different levels. You cannot behave effectively while we're operating in different levels, which means you get your mind filled that you are a holy being. And I know I did this a lot in my family when I was moving through my awakening. And I am we create our own reality. And then my kids would come in, and let's say my daughter wanted to create her own reality and go partying with her friends. And I'm like, no, you can't do that. Well, at one level, I realized that we create our own reality. But while I was playing the level of mom, I was in that controlling, fearful, anxious, in the place of, I need to make sure that I tell you what to do because it's my responsibility as a mother. When I went to that level, then I wanted to take away her ability to create her own reality. So we've got to get to the place where all these beautiful truths are congruent. We cannot make exceptions. The way we treat our children is the way we treat our boss, is the way we treat our lover, is the way we treat our neighbor. It's the same way we treat the homeless person on the street. It has to be all the same. There can't be levels of rights and wrongs or it okay or not okay. Everything has to become singularly um, experienced as only extension of love, one powerful creator to another. When we can do that all the way across the board, that's when you know you have achieved the level of oneness, which is why Jesus treated the people he was teaching, or the Roman bosses, the same way, with reverence. That's why he didn't react when he was condemned to crucifixion, because he was listening to the voice of God in him. And what was he here to give? He was here to gift the knowingness that he was not a body, that he was free. That's why he didn't need to fight. And also, he wasn't going to fight and attack the Jewish rabbis that were accusing him, or the Roman, I forget the one that was accusing him, whatever. He wasn't judging them or blaming them or attacking them, because he knew they were one with him. He was here to deliver a lesson. I'm not a body, I am free. I am still as God created me. He was here to teach that I'm going to love my neighbor as myself. And I'm going to forgive this person that's hammering these nails in my hand, because he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know that he's killing the Son of God, because he doesn't know he is the Son of God also. So inside of Jesus's high consciousness, everybody was treated exactly the same. There were no levels that he saw people by. However, while you do operate in levels, correction must be introduced vertically from the bottom up. We've got to correct, where am I behaving in evil ways? Where am I operating in destructive ways? Where am I guilting? Where am I in hopelessness? We have to move our way up, and we do that through forgiving ourselves. Information in the mind. I am a creator of my own reality. Transformation or integration in the body. Let me forgive myself for what I've done. Transformation, you ascend. Then the next lesson comes in. Information, I am the creator of my own reality. Integration, let me forgive myself for believing that I'm a victim, believing that I'm powerless, believing that I have to abdicate to a spouse or to a boss or to a whatever. Let me forgive myself for that. Integrate the truth of who I am, transform and ascend. And we do this over and over and over vertically from the bottom up. This is because you think that you live in space where concepts such as up and down are meaningful. Ultimately, space is as meaningless as time. Both are merely beliefs. The higher we ascend in our conscious awareness of the truth of who we are, think of it as climbing a mountain. You can see more the way God sees things, less from the valley as the eagle sees, but more as God sees them. You begin to realize at some point, this happens, that everything that you're correcting, like going back into the past memories of childhood, you think you're correcting the past. Well, past doesn't exist. You're correcting in this now moment a memory that surfaced now about the past for you to release it from the density that it holds. Like it holds you stuck. It's like that baggage that weighs down your hot air balloon. You correct it by saying, oh, okay, I'm no longer going to believe that what dad did to me at 3 has power over me. I'm the creator of my own reality. Thank you, Dad, for playing that role. What did I learn from that? We in the now moment take back our power by accepting everything that has happened to us because that script was written before incarnation to give us those experiences. And what we get to do here with our free will is to choose not to use it to hold us in that density, but to use it to release us from that density through forgiveness. Forgiving ourselves for having forgotten. It was just a role that we were playing. But the mind gets conditioned very deliberately into believing that we should have resentments for what others did to us, that we're justified in that resentment so that we can realize I didn't do it to myself, which is one of the real, I'm going to say, challenging things for people who are used to therapy, because so much traditional therapy is about who can we blame? This is not your fault. It's mom's fault. It's dad's fault. That's a good step into getting your mind to begin to understand that there were things that happened between two parties. But the Course in Miracle wants you to realize that that other played a role for you to find your power, your voice, your willingness to stop being victimized by what others did. And inside of that willingness to stop being victimized, you forgive them for the role that they played, but you forgive yourself for having participated in a story that kept you stuck at a lower frequency. So all of this is realizing that when you come back into that there is no such thing as space and time, we move out of the frantic conditioning of saving for the future, of preparing for the future, of this treadmill about when I retire, when I get there, when it moves you into the now moment. Because if in the now moment you are singularly focused on expressing the truth of who you are, not who am I and what can I get out of the world, but rather what am I and what am I here to gift to the world, then you are operating, living in the now moment, because the mind's been released of past stories and future acquisitions, future achievements. Now you're in this now moment. The levels cease to run your life. The fragmented personalities are no longer running your life. You are now operating at a higher frequency where you recognize everything is happening as it should in this now moment for a reason. Now you can become an observer of what is, realizing that everybody's doing the best that they can at whatever level of consciousness they're at. All actors on the stage. Now you don't take things personally because you have returned your mind into a corrected state of acceptance, that you're here because you wanted to be here to bring love and light to the planet. When you didn't bring your love and light, you descended into darkness and fear. We did it to ourselves. Now we're ascending through the recognition that everything is happening right now. So the mind has to be trained into the awareness that nothing is solid. It is all pure consciousness, pure energy. It is just a miracle, truly a miracle, that we are experiencing anything like this as real, that there's people on the other side of the Zoom camera observing me over here. To experience that with the knowledge that it is all really, truly happening as oneness, not as separation, frees the mind from the games of condemnation of others, from the games of giving power away or taking it from another. And that correction is what allows God to be able to work through us in such a way that in every now moment, we feel fully engaged, we feel fully present, because there's not a future that you're preparing for. You are immersed in the only moment that there is. And these levels of correction are all part of what we are training our mind to understand. So let me stop here and let me ask any thoughts, comments, questions. Let's see, Vern, you have posted, yes, Einstein said you cannot solve a problem at the same level that created it. The world is in a heap of messes right now because there's all of the problems that are causing suffering on the planet were created by people whose consciousness were at that level. And they're the ones who are in positions of power, for some in positions of power for 40 some odd years, because we've allowed it, trying to change the problems that they created with that mind that created it back then. That's why we can't get out of the hamster wheel. Anybody have any comments or questions? Gotta run. Hey, Laina, thanks for joining us. No, so nobody's unmuting themselves. And let's go to paragraph number 4. So the real purpose of this world is to use it to correct your unbelief. Listen to how beautiful that is. This world, we projected out when we decided, let me go hide from God and pretend that I am God, pretend that I'm the boss of me. So what happens in this world when you begin to awaken is you use the world to correct the misperception that you are here to hide from God and be your own God. Instead, you correct it and assume your position as the holy presence of God itself, individually expressed through you. Once we correct that, we will remain, as the Course in Miracles tells us, experiencing the illusion of separation, because we're going to appear to have other people around us, but we will create a happy dream instead. We become happy dream creators. That's where humanity is going for the next couple of 100 years, a few generations for sure. As people incarnate at higher and higher frequencies, we are going to begin to little by little remember the truth of who we are. And as we remember the truth of who we are, the creation on this planet will be that of a happy dream, where we, when you create from love and cooperation and collaboration, it's a very different world. You know those relationships that collaborate here. Well, the 3D world that has been operating in competition and greed and just lies, that world is having their experience, because that's where those people want to be. That's where those souls need to be for their joyride, because that's what they want to do. As we move into this place, recognizing that the real purpose of this world is for me to see what I projected on it, correct it, and come back into my center, then we are going to be co-creating a happy dream. That's when everything becomes heaven on earth. We have to get our mind out of judgment and into joyful expression and extension of what we truly are. Sentence number 2 says, you can never control the effects of fear yourself, because you made fear and you believe in what you made. So in attitude then, though not in content, you resemble your creator, who has perfect faith in his creations because he created them. God has perfect faith, created us, knowing we're powerful creators. We got conditioned into believing that we don't create, a little bit. You create your how you decorate your room, or you create how you maybe do your job, or some of the stuff that you might put out there. But we have been conditioned into believing from the time that we're little that we are in bondage, that we are limited, that we can only do a little bit, but not all of it. So until we face the fears of breaking out of that bondage, which means being willing to recognize that if you understand that we are made in the image of a creator, then we have the same power of creation as God does. So in the Course in Miracles, we are told that we have the same power God does, except for one thing. We cannot create ourselves. God created us, but we create just the same way that God creates. So we can't uncreate ourselves. God created us, and what God creates is what God loves, and it's not going to get rid of. So we are here. Now, are we willing to accept that we have the power of God? All of it. No exceptions, none whatsoever. The ego goes, oh, yippee, I create. Now I'm going to create winning the lottery. Because the ego immediately goes to, what can I get? But the power of creation is the power to love all it creates. This is where love is the only way out of this insanity. Because when we accept that we created the father that abandoned me at 10, the failed relationships, I created my beautiful children, I created the drug use that my children went through and took me on a crazy journey on. Once you can love all that has shown up in your life, you begin to realize that you created it. Because as a powerful creator, when we love what is, it can then become transformed. The reason we must to rise, forgive those who have done all these atrocious things, The only way that we can rise above and bring in the fifth dimension, the new earth, whatever you want to call it, heaven on earth, we need to love those who gave us the opportunities to experience what we no longer desire to experience, because it is our creative mind that needs to be accepted. If there is horrible stuff that I don't like, let me stop creating it. How do we create it? Back to Lisa's question. Don't judge it. Don't condemn it. Or you reincarnate in needing to face these things again because the lesson hasn't been learned. What's the lesson? The lesson is love. I've got to love you. I've got to love it. I've got to love what happened because it's how I chose to use my power. Now, if I love it and accept it, it doesn't need to show up again because I don't need it. I don't need the lesson of loving. If loving has happened, what is there to love? It's already loved. So here, let me read this again. In attitude, not in content, you resemble your creator who has perfect faith in his creations because he created them. The next sentence, number 4, belief produces the acceptance of existence. We have to accept that we created this existence. And if you can see all the crazy people running around hurting others, pretending that they're the bosses of us, pretending that they have power over us, that they're the dictator, that they're the president, that they're, the jailer, that they're the head of the corporation, that they're the ones who get to say yes or no to our credit score, that they get to tell us you can travel or can't travel, that they tell us you got to accept the vaccine or no vaccine or whatever it might be. Well, I shouldn't have said that word because they might take this video down, as I've experienced with others. Once all of these people cease to be people who have power over you, but rather are just the characters that are in your experience for you to say, well, isn't that interesting? For so long, I gave you power, but I don't want to give you power anymore. Now what happens? I am accepting this existence as a wonderful opportunity for me to see how powerful I am. But now I'm bored with this game and I want to go to the next level. The game played only with love. The game played only with joy. Wow. That's where we get to go. That is what ascension is. How can I now create with awareness that I project my own reality, that everybody's there because I place them there? If you know that, are you going to place murderers there? Are you going to place people that lie and cheat to you? No. We haven't played at that level of consciousness yet, which is why it takes so freaking long to get people to shift their thinking, to begin to focus on what they want instead, not from a need, because now we realize, oh, there's not a need of illusion. We don't need the need of I need stuff. You pop out of that illusion of needing where you can be controlled into the illusion of wholeness, of having, of being. Now, what do you want to project on the stage? And that is what's so exciting about what's coming. But you can't project what you want while you're struggling and fighting against what you don't want, because that is a low density that sucks the energy out of you. This is a high frequency that gives you the opportunity to see how unlimited you are with your creative power, your creative juice. Sentence 5, that is why you can believe what no one else thinks is true. It is true for you because it was made by you. As we are continuing this journey and we are separating into those who operate at this frequency, you find, you all know this, you're attracting more and more and more. You want to be with people who are talking about what's possible, not fighting the division and the speaking for this group and that group and trying to get people to get along here. That was part of my journey. I did that. We all go through some of that aspect. I only like to teach people who already understand that there is an ego, and either they already see it and want to transcend it, or they want to see it. That's exciting to me, somebody who wants to see their ego. And it's tricky to see your ego because the ego gets spiritualized. And when you're all spiritualized and think you know everything spiritually because you're connecting, you're receiving messages, it's really challenging to be honest and see how judgmental we are, even from our spiritual pedestal. I know, was on there on a high spiritual pedestal. I thought I was, the bomb.com. And of course, then I had to go through my humiliation realization that no, I really wasn't walking the talk. But when you drop off of that spiritual pedestal, you land in the arms of God that says, hey, it's okay. I made you to create. You created that. Now create something else. Create something that brings you more joy. So the next part of this is so rich and wonderful. I don't want to rush through it. So let's just stop here. And we will get to that next section next week. I want to hear from you. So what did you take away from this conversation? Any nuggets, any words of wisdom, something that you're going to take that you received? Do you have any questions, any comments? Let me open this up. I want to hear from you. Unmute yourselves, please, and share. Powers of love. I'd love to hear from you. What did you think of this conversation? The first time you guys have been to one of my classes. Oh, I can't hear you. There's like a faint. No? All right. Dondra, Lorelei, John, Patrice.
How about now?
Oh, there we go. There you go. I hear you.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Just basking in the glory of you, sister. Just our,
Thank you, Laina.
Oh, you guys are so sweet. Thanks
just,
for joining.
this is good stuff and so important. And I appreciate you doing what you're doing. And we're just sitting here, just receiving, and this is just spot on. I mean, we've been students of the course for a long time, and this is a journey. And I love the piece that you really always represent in every conversation we've always had with you. In our spiritual journey, the ego can just wrap itself around it and think it's so important and so illumined and so smart and wise. And just knowing that surrendering to the truth of God is all there is, and just surrendering that to that is really our journey these days. And that, somebody said something to us the other day. We heard of Archangel Michael. It's like the name we know is Archangel Michael. Who is like God? Who is like God is Michael. But it was like in the battle cry, it was said that he said, who is like God? In that sense of that I am, and I'm also part of something that is so huge, and I surrender to that. And in that surrender is where our rising, our ascension comes effortlessly by grace. And so just we take this into our day, and we love the course. We love you. Love you all.
Thank you. Thank you for those beautiful words and sweet comments. I'm so grateful you're here. That surrendering process is what scares the ego more than anything, because it truly becomes like a death of who we think we are. And we want that part of us who is so mistaken. We really want that part to die, but we don't kill the ego. The ego ceases to exist the minute that we ignore it. The minute that you stop believing that you are something other than how God created you, the minute your mind is trained well enough into accepting that you don't want to be you don't want to be righteous about anything. You do not want to believe and accept as true anything that blocks you from accepting the wholeness of who you are. So the disregard of the ego happens when you commit to being the embodiment of the characteristics of a teacher of God, a teacher of truth, which the Course gives us what those 10 characteristics are. The minute you value peace, the minute that you are honest about what's going on, the minute that you are open-minded and tolerant and choose joy over anything else, the minute that we operate inside of that defenselessness and that honesty and that integrity and that abundance, that patience, those beautiful attributes, the minute you choose that to be what is your truth, the ego ceases to exist because it's the block to that. So thank you so much for being here. Patrice, you were going to speak. So good to see you, sister.
Hi, good to see you too. My question really has to do with, getting stuck in the past, getting triggered by things, having like my mind thinking about things from the past, or feeling sensations in my body that's like, oh, I think I'm letting it go, but it still comes up. And I'm wondering what can be done to accelerate that process of really, giving up the past.
Great question. And I would say that the best thing to do is to ask yourself a simple question. And it's the question, what benefit am I getting from this? What benefit am I getting from regurgitating that story? What benefit am I getting from being angry or being righteous? What benefit is there? When we go to that honest, what benefit is there? At some point, you begin to realize, oh, it just keeps me in victim mode, or it keeps me superior. Those are the only two places the ego takes us, down into victimhood or up into superiorness. That's his only range. So once you decide, you know what, I don't want to be right about this anymore. I'd rather be happy. Or I don't want to be a victim to this, because to be a victim means that I have to give my power away. I don't want to keep doing that. You will have a shift. What benefit is there to continuing this story? Very simple. And now we are being supported with energies that are accelerating our ability to release density. So when you come into a real honest inquiry, what's the benefit to this? You are going to be supported very quickly in gaining your clarity, because the ego can't keep us in confusion as much now if we are committed to clarity. And the universe, the partnerships are out there, especially if you've opened yourself up to galactic partnership, to angelic partnership, to knowing that there's more beyond the physical realm. If you are open to that, then you have to practice lesson 77 of the course, which is, I'm entitled to miracles. And when you ask, what benefit is there for me to continue to think about this? Do it from a place of, I'm expecting a miracle. I mean, command God, command the holy beings, the angelic being. I'm expecting you to help me see what's going on, because I'm ready to release this. That's when honesty really kicks in. You own that you deserve it, because you are entitled to the miracle of the freedom, and you're expecting God to support you, because God is the part of you that wants you to be free of that. So own it, claim it, command it, and it is yours. But it is that simple question: what do I benefit from this? What is the benefit? And you'll be amazed by the only benefit is to maintain us in suffering. Once you no longer see suffering as a benefit, you don't want to play that game anymore. Thank you for that question, Patrice.
Thank you.
Yes, Vern.
Yes, I've really enjoyed today.
Thank you.
I guess I'm in the process of preparing a big move.
Yes, very exciting.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's really interesting because I think it was last week, a couple of weeks ago, you mentioned one of my favorite authors. One of the very first metaphysical books was given to me was by Florence Shen.
Mm.
And it was the Game of Life and how to play it. And of course, she did Word is Your Wand as well. But I remember in that when she talks about one of the techniques she used with many people that came to her when they were confused and weren't quite sure what to do, the next step, she would tell them to go home and clean your closet. I mean, physically clean your closet, because of the process you go through on a mental, emotional level, a priority level. Where have I been? Where am I at? Where am I going? All of those thoughts go through your mind as you're doing it. So that's what's been happening to me now, because I've decided that as I'm going through everything, I started asking myself, now, what state of mind was I in when I brought this in? I'm looking at this little statue in front of me. What state of mind was I in when I attracted this to me? When I bought those shoes, what state of mind was I in when I bought those shoes? And then, of course, the other thing is do they still add value? And what's the emotional attachment to those things I don't want to let go of? So it's like it's a spiritual enema. It's about as simple as I can make it, where I'm literally, moving towards, as I'm moving out of here, I'm moving things out of my life.
Yeah.
And it's really amazing every day, because that night before I go to sleep now, because I decided not to wait till the last minute. And I'm, I do a little bit every couple hours, and I go back and do my other work, and I come back and do more. So it's a continual process. But it is big, because it's forcing me on a physical level to address those things that I created on a different level.
Yeah.
And,
oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and then the other question is that what value could somebody else get from this? In other words, somebody says, well, you can have a garage sale. No, I'm not going to have a garage sale. I'm going to put the word out, and people will come and get it, or I'll take it to Goodwill, that somebody will get something from this, because my filter, the final filter I'm using, is this: if I haven't touched it and used it effectively in the last 365 days, you don't need it. It shouldn't be in your life. You're just literally just stashing stuff away. So that's what I'm kind of getting out of it. And it kind of goes along with what Einstein says. I can't resolve the issues and challenges in my life on the same level I created them on.
Yeah.
So I'm just cleaning things out. But that's what's going on with me right now. I probably won't be on the call next week, because that's the big day.
Oh.
So I will be thinking about you guys. And it was really nice having the group, a nice large group, 15 people today, 16, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And things are going well. And I enjoyed my lunch with Crystal.
Yes, he said that, and he asked me to tell everybody he was sorry he couldn't be here, but he had a conference call at this time, so he had to be on that. But yes, he so enjoyed connecting with you. And what you said is so perfect, because as within, so without. We do have to declutter the external as a reflection of an uncluttered internal. They go hand in hand. It is really, it's just part of the journey. So grateful. Well, how about if everybody unmute yourself and let's say goodbye to each other, and look forward to seeing you next week. Same time, same channel.
Thank you so much, Laina, and everyone loved it.
Oh,
Thank
good.
you, Laina. Beautiful.
Thank you so much, Laina, and everyone. Loved it too.
Love you all so much. Have a good one. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Adios.
Thank you. Bye-bye.